Hello, I'm back. I know it's been a minute since I've popped up on video, but I thought as we're getting towards the end of November, now is a good time to just recalibrate a little bit of what's been going on in organisations. This is specifically for decision makers and people in business. In no particular order, here are some of the things that I think you've got to get out of your head when you're thinking about what are you going to do and how are you going to do it. Now, I know in theory, some of you may be thinking, oh my God, but haven't you been talking about this since June? So clearly we must have moved past the inertia and the discomfort, and unfortunately that is not the case. You've got to get out of your head that you've got to be perfect with this. It is going to be messy. It is going to be about experimentation. And too many people, I think, are still thinking about this being a traditional business problem. You don't have to know absolutely everything to be able to commit to being an anti-racist organisation, but you do have to have an understanding of how racism impacts your black colleagues. It's the amount of time it's taking you to grapple with how you tackle this. And let's be honest, some of it is going to be driven by thinking, will this still be a thing in 2021? Can't I just close the door to this? Do you know what I mean? Can't I leave it behind? And I'm going to tell you this, but I can guarantee you this will still be a 2021 issue. So you can't bury your head in the sand because it feels really awkward and you feel really uncomfortable and hope that this is going to go away. The other piece is social capital is alive and well, and I do recognise that if you're within a peer group of CEOs, decision makers of similar businesses, and they haven't done anything yet, you're probably thinking, well, I want to see what they're doing before I decide what I'm going to do. Now, the problem with that is that you're always a follower. And right now, you're never going to be a fast follower because everybody else has already got off the blocks, got out of the blocks, so to speak, in June. And what I say to senior leadership teams is, listen, you just want to get started. Because if you keep leaving this as an issue, forget the impact on your colleagues for a minute, then when your competitors, and meaning competitors that you don't even know about yet, have already started making moves in this space, they've committed to being anti-racist, they've started the journey, they're listening to their employees, they're off. By the time you catch up, they've already gained so much ground because they've put out signals to the market that they're serious about this, which means they've got new customers who will be more loyal to them. They've attracted talented individuals who want to work there because they are explicit about what they're doing about anti-racism. So you end up looking potentially like a dinosaur at best, or at worst, a racist organisation because of your unwillingness to act. The other thing is that you can't prioritise your comfort by not explicitly acknowledging how black people are feeling within your organisation. So I know there are some leadership teams who, because they're still having internal dialogue, that internal dialogue hasn't yet morphed into action, which means their black colleagues within the business are still waiting, or even if you've done a little bit, because you're still thinking about this from a checkbox point of view, what you've done is gone, well, we've had a training session, we've had a speaker come in, so we've done some stuff here, but the business is prioritising other things, so we haven't got into what's going to happen next. And the other piece connected to that is because you're possibly not getting a lot of feedback, so you don't have black colleagues knocking on your virtual door or any other colleagues going, what are you doing? You're kidding yourself into thinking, well, we must have solved this issue then. Do you know what I mean? Having this black person over here come in and talk to us about the black experience, and having a couple of workshops over here and helping us understand, the different types of racism and how that manifests itself in work and in society. Like, we get that now. And I've read this book, and I've watched this documentary, and I've listened to this podcast. So we've done this as a company. These are our steps, and we've got the statement to show that we're committed to being anti-racist. But nobody else is knocking on our door really to ask what else we're doing. So the silence must mean that maybe we don't have this issue in our organisation. That also isn't the case. So this is a complex issue. This will take time, and I always say you have to be okay with the fact that this will outlive your tenure with the organisation. So you're putting some things in place that you probably won't see the return on investment for years, but that has got to be okay, because we are in a global race for equality. That means there is an expectation that you participate in that to get to equality. It doesn't happen just by you sitting on the sidelines hoping and praying or burying your head in the sand that nobody's going to step to you and go, well, what are you doing as a team? What are you doing as an organisation? Like, how serious are you about this? You also don't need to have 5 million, 6 million, 100 million pounds or dollars to demonstrate that this is about anti-racism, because this starts with sometimes the littlest of things. How are you listening to your black colleagues? How much attention are you paying to what your supply chain and your partners are doing? Are you thinking about how the experience being black manifests itself within your organisation? What does it look like when somebody's being hired? What does it look like when they're being onboarded? What does it look like on their first day? How is their performance evaluated? How are they paid? Not according to what they earned in a previous role, but how are they paid in alignment with market rates, in alignment to the rest of their peers, in alignment to somebody who did the role before them who didn't look like them? And off you go. These are all things that you can do even if you're a company of 5. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to be hundreds of thousands of employees to be able to do this. And I think that's also a thing, that where people are thinking this anti-racism movement, what I have to do is not me they're talking about, because I don't own a big company. I've only got like 50 employees, I've only got 100 employees. This is not for me. But this is for everyone. So this is like my call to action, I guess, that we don't get complacent, we don't mistake silence for progress, because it isn't progress. Like, decision makers, you do have to take this seriously, because we're stepping into territory now where you've got to have an answer for why you didn't do anything. Whether you've got to answer your shareholders, whether you've got to answer to your clients or to your customers, who then start saying to you like, this is great, so what have you been doing? Because like, here's what we've been doing. No, we're not perfect, we're not there yet, but this is what we've committed to do, this is what we've started to do, this is how we're going to measure our progress, etc, etc. So like, what's going on with you? And if you don't have an answer, you've got to be able to articulate why you don't have an answer. You know, I'm unapologetic in the fact that I'm addressing this to leadership teams, to chief people officers, because I can tell you, like, the CEOs and the leadership teams who have started this journey, not one of them are regretting the fact that they've started. Not one of them. Yes, it feels messy. Yes, it feels very awkward because like nobody's quite sure what they're doing. But they're learning things about their culture that they didn't know about. They're seeing things they didn't see before. They've got more understanding, they've got more empathy, they've got more compassion. But what they're also seeing is the plus side of everybody coming together and going, we want to be part of this change. We want to be proud to work for an organisation who is seriously responding to society's call for action. So they're already starting to see the upside and they've barely got started. So it's not perfect, but you're in a much better position when you're able to sit round a virtual table of your peers and say, do you know what, I might not get it 100%, like, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole thing about how we're even here, but I haven't stopped. I haven't let that stop me from being explicit, from starting to make changes, but first off to listening to my black colleagues. So that's my little keynote for this week. And I'm doing a live on Thursday, so hopefully you can join me then. But if nothing else, you know, for those of you who are still struggling to get your decision makers on the same page, you can just like send them a link to this video. So hopefully that helps. All right, thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you next time.